You do not stop a Panzer spearhead with a toy. For decades, that was the iron law of armored warfare. If you heard the rumble of German panzers, 30 tons of steel moving at 40 kilometers per hour, you needed armor, firepower, and mass. The Soviets understood this. Germany understood this. Every armored warfare theorist since the 1930s understood this. And that's exactly why German commanders laughed, literally laughed, when they first encountered the Soviet T-70, a tank with armor barely thicker than a rifle plate, a tank where the commander also had to be the gunner, a tank armed with a 45mm gun that looked like a toy next to an 88. It was, by every rule of mechanized warfare, useless against a Panzer III and suicidal against a Panzer IV. But in 1943, on the southern shoulder of the Eastern Front, one young lieutenant in a single T-70 would rewrite that rule and stop an armored breakthrough that should have shattered his entire sector. Ivan Flerov is just 22 years old, a former tractor mechanic from Ryazan, compact, wiry, and famous in his battalion for one thing. He never gives up a position he's ordered to hold. He commands a T-70, not because he wants to, but because every T-34 is already thrown into the meat grinder around Belgorod. The Red Army needs every functioning vehicle on the line, even those the Germans dismiss as irrelevant. In the summer of 1943, the Soviets are bracing for Operation Citadel. German armored divisions, veterans of 3 years of Blitzkrieg, are trying to punch through the Soviet lines and encircle entire armies. Every sector matters. Every kilometer ceded can unravel the front. Flerov's brigade holds a thin defensive strip near a small village, no more than 1.8 kilometers of frontage. Their job is simple: delay any German advance long enough for heavier forces to reposition. But dawn breaks with the worst possible sight. 8 German panzers, supported by nearly 200 infantry, headed straight for the weakest link on the line. And at the center of that weak link is a single T-70, Flerov's tank, its 2-man crew, and its 45mm gun staring down an armored fist that shouldn't even notice them. He knows the rule that he knows what the manuals say. But he also knows one more thing. If he abandons this position, German armor will pour through and collapse the flank. So he grits his teeth, slams the hatch shut, and prepares to face the impossible. The German column advances in perfect confidence. Tracks grind. Engines roar at 600 horsepower. The dust cloud is visible from over a kilometer away. Flerov positions his T-70 behind a slight rise, just enough hull down to hide his weak armor, but still allow a firing angle. His loader, Private Mikhail Antonov, breathes shallowly. The cramped turret is barely large enough for one man, let alone two. 1,500 meters. The German column marches forward, unaware they're being watched. 1,200 meters. Flerov steadies the sight. His hands tremble. Sweat drips down his back. 900 meters. He can see the lead panzer for clearly now. Thick frontal armor. Long-barreled 75mm gun. A Predator built to kill tanks exactly like his. Flerov whispers, "Steady, steady." 700 meters. He fires. The 45mm gun cracks like a whip. The T-70 rocks back. The shell slams into the Panzer IV's track. Sparks. A screech. The lead tank jerks sideways and stops dead. The Germans freeze. For the first time, they realize the toy tank is actually engaging them. Flerov fires again, this time at 600 meters. Another hit. Another track disabled. The spearhead stalls. German commanders bark orders. Infantry fan out. Panzer turrets swing toward the ridge. And now the real fight begins. The first German round whistles overhead, close enough that the concussion punches the air from Flerov's lungs. The second impact sprays earth over the turret like hail. He shifts position 20 meters to the left, using the ridge as cover. The T-70's engine whines at its limit. Antonov loads as fast as his shaking hands allow. Flerov pops up again. Fires. 500 meters. He lands a hit on a Panzer III's turret ring. Smoke pours out. German commanders cannot believe what they're seeing. A single light tank, one they dismissed as a reconnaissance toy, is forcing the entire spearhead to maneuver. But Flerov isn't done. He notices the German column bunching around the 2 disabled tanks. If he can stall them for 5 more minutes, Soviet infantry from his brigade will reach the line. He pushes forward, closing to 400 meters, then 350. German MG-42 teams open up. The sound is a ripping saw, 1,200 rounds per minute hammering the ridge. Flare of ducks, shoulders screaming from the recoil. Another near miss shakes the turret. His ears ring. A Panzer IV lands around just meters short. The explosion slams against the hull like a sledgehammer. Dirt rains through every crack. For a moment, he can't hear anything but a dull roar. Failure seems certain. Another hit and they're done. Another minute and they're surrounded. He makes the most desperate choice of his life. He charges. The T-70 lunges forward at 42 kilometers per hour, the engine screaming. He moves so close. Under 250 meters, that German guns overshoot him. He fires into the side of a Panzer III. The shell punches through. Flames erupt. The Germans panic. Their formation collapses inward. Infantry fall back behind their armor. The spearhead, supposed to be an unstoppable phalanx, dissolves into confusion. And in that moment, Soviet reinforcements arrive. Riflemen swarm the flanks. At guns unlimber. Mortars fire. The German advance dies before it ever truly starts. If you find this kind of forgotten history as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. We believe these stories of courage and sacrifice deserve to be told. And by subscribing, you help us ensure they aren't forgotten. What the Germans didn't realize immediately was the strategic cost of that single stalled attack. The sector flare of Held was supposed to be a soft entry point, a place where German armor could break through in less than an hour. Instead, it became a choke point. A delayed logjam that disrupted the timing of the entire divisional advance. German commanders filed reports complaining about unexpected armored resistance and concealed anti-tank positions. No one wanted to admit the truth. They had been held off by a T-70. The consequences rippled outward. That day's delay allowed Soviet units to refortify the sector. It forced the German battle group to divert armor to another part of the line. And it contributed to a pattern emerging throughout 1943. The Red Army, once overrun by blitzkrieg, was now learning to counter it. One stall, one delay, one unexpected stand at a time. And the toy tank had proven it could rewrite expectations. Ivan Flerov survived the engagement, but only barely. Shrapnel wounds, a concussed ear, bruised ribs from the gun recoil. He spent 2 weeks in a field hospital before returning to his brigade. Antonov, the loader by his side that day, would later die during the Soviet push toward the Dnieper. He was just 21 years old. Flerov lived long enough to tell his story, to remind later generations that even the smallest, most underestimated machines can change the fate of a battlefield if the men inside refuse to back down. To this day, historians debate the T-70's value, but those who served in them know the truth. It was never about the armor. It was never about the gun. It was about the will of the crews who fought in a tank everyone else dismissed. And that's why this story matters now. Because courage doesn't require the biggest machine, only the biggest resolve. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state, and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that Ivan Flerov and the men of the 206th Tank Brigade do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.